Beneath the silence of a royal palace, something strange begins each night. 12 pairs of slippers laid neatly at dusk are found at dawn, torn and worn as if the princesses had danced until the souls surrendered. No music is heard. No doors are seen to open. Yet every morning the evidence is there, leather ground down, silk shredded to threads. The king sets guards, locks the gates, places watchers in the shadows. But nothing stops the riddle. The daughters appear by day with innocent smiles, yet their shoes tell another truth, that while the kingdom sleeps, they vanish into another world. Why would 12 young women risk everything night after night? Why dance themselves to ruin in secret halls that no one can find? Some say it was love. Others whisper it was rebellion. But the oldest versions carry a darker suggestion that the princesses were not dancing for joy, but for survival. That what awaited them in the hidden chamber was not romance, but ritual. And here lies the paradox, a tale told as entertainment passed down as a harmless fairy story. Yet it holds patterns too precise to ignore. The number 12 echoing lunar cycles, sacred calendars, the rhythm of time itself. The ruined shoes, symbols of life force drained in offering. The sealed chamber, a threshold between worlds. What if the 12 dancing princesses is not simply a story to lull children to sleep, but the fractured memory of something far older? What if these silent shoes are footprints that lead us back not to a ballroom, but to a 900-year-old ritual where dance was not delight, but debt, paid in flesh and silence? Once upon a time, so the story begins, there was a king with 12 daughters. They were the crown of his kingdom, each as radiant as the dawn. Yet with dawn came dread, for every morning the servants carried in 12 pairs of shoes, torn and ruined, as though the princesses had walked to you. The king raged. He locked their doors. He doubled the guards. He swore no man could enter, no girl could leave. And yet, as the moon waned and waxed, the shoes continued to wear thin. It was as though invisible hands drew. Suitors came, princes, noblemen, warriors. The king promised riches, even his daughter's hands, to any who could solve the mystery. But each one failed, for they saw nothing, heard nothing, until dawn, when the princesses returned pale and smiling, as if veils of silence had swallowed the night whole. At last came a soldier, no prince, no courtly man, just a veteran of wars. He was given a cloak of invisibility, some say by an old crone, others say by forces darker still. He followed the daughters when the candles went out, and what he saw was no ballroom of Delia. The floor split open. The walls gave way to a passage deep into the earth. Down they went, 12 shadows, lanterns flickering. At the bottom lay a vast hall of stone, lit not by torches, but by a glow that pulsed like veins of molten metal. There stood 12 men princes, they were called, but their eyes glimmered like embers and their hands were cold as bone. The princesses bowed. They took the men's arms, and then the music began. Not the lilting notes of joy, but a rhythm that struck like a heartbeat under duress. A drum that echoed the pulse of the earth itself. Step by step, the sisters danced. Their slippers tore, their breath grew ragged. Sweat fell like dew on stone. The soldier unseen watched in horror. The more they danced, the more the ground seemed to drink their strength. The princes did not tire. Only the daughters weakened. It was a ritual, not a revel. The shoes burned away because life was being consumed piece by piece, night by night. When dawn threatened, the 12 princesses staggered back through the passage, pale as the dead, their slippers in tatters. The soldier returned with them, but in silence. He had seen enough. He knew the truth that these daughters were not sneaking to secret lovers, but bound by something older, darker, and unspoken. Later retellings softened the vision. They spoke of enchanted ballrooms, of golden goblets, of charming princes beneath the earth. They turned the soldier into a victor who won the hand of a princess. But older whispers, those carried in folk tales, not meant for children, hinted otherwise. They spoke of the 12 brides of the underworld, bound to dance as offering to keep famine at bay, to hold back pestilence, to appease the gods who dwelt in shadow. The paradox is sharp. A fairy tale of laughter and silk hides a memory of exhaustion, sacrifice, and terror. What we call enchantment was once ordeal. What we call magic was once blood debt. And so the story that children read as harmless as fanciful may be only the skeleton of something once real, where dance was compulsion, where beauty was consumed, where shoes were not torn by joy, but by survival in a world that demanded payment in steps and silence. It is not just a German tale. The pattern Razdi. In ancient Greece, the shadows of the 12 princesses appear under another name. There were maidens of Artemis priestesses who vanished into the forest at night. They were said to dance in sacred groves until their feet bled a gift of exhaustion to the virgin goddess. Their movements were not joy, but duty. And when they returned, their bodies bore the signs of striding. Among the Celts, too, a similar story lingers. Young women called brides of the underworld were chosen to perform midnight dances near burial mounds. Each step was believed to feed the dead, to soothe restless spirits. The ritual was dangerous for those who faltered, were said to be claimed by the earth itself. Here again, dance be. Even further east in China, old texts whisper of the Yeyua, the night banquets. Noble daughters were led to hidden chambers beneath ancestral tombs. There, they performed dances meant to awaken the spirits of the lineage, ensuring prosperity for the living. The records are scarce snippets in forbidden annals, but they describe girls collapsing at dawn, their silken shoes shredded, their breath gone. The resonance with the German tale is chilling, and in the Middle East, archaeology offers echoes. Clay tablets from Mesopotamia speak of temple dancers bound to gods of the underworld. 12 maidens chosen yearly were confined in sanctuaries where they danced without pause, their shoes worn to dust, their bodies drained to keep famine at bay. Scholars once dismissed this as symbolic. But how symbolic does it sound when we recall the 12 sisters slipping away into the night? The motif is relentless. Across continents, across ages, 12 maidens, secret passages, endless dances, worn shoes, pale faces. Could this be coincidence? Or is it the scar of something real, an ancient practice woven into the memory of mankind, disguised as a tale for children? Notice the constants. The number 12 mirroring the lunar months, the zodiac, the cycles of time. The underground chamber, always a passage into death, into the soil, into the womb of the earth. The dance, an offering of energy, a ritual of exhaustion. And the ruined shoes, the symbol that remains when all else is forgotten, the physical trace of a sacrifice, repeated too often to vanish completely. What the brothers Grimm preserved was only the faintest outline, softened for ears unready for blood and ash. Yet the fragments align too perfectly with the rituals of other lands. The story is not unique, it is universal. And universality tells us something vital. This is not invention, it is survival. A memory carried in myth, reshaped, retold, softened with each century until all that remains are 12 princesses, a hidden hall, and shoes that break each night. So when we hear the story today sweetened for children, we should ask, what are we really remembering? A dance of delight? Or the shadow of a 900-year-old ritual, still echoing beneath our stories like a drumbeat we can no longer silence? Why does the motif of the exhausted dancers appear in so many places across so many centuries? Why do stories of young women forced to dance until collapse echo from Germany to Greece, from Celtic tombs to Mesopotamian temples, folklore scholars offer one explanation. Dance was once a form of sacred currency. In many cultures, movement was not just art, but offering. To dance until the body weakened was to give energy back to the gods, to surrender life force step by step. Where words failed, bodies spoke. And the shoes, torn and shredded, were not accidents. They were proof of sacrifice, relics of devotion. Archaeology strengthens this suspicion. In the ruins of Crete, excavations at Knossos revealed frescoes of young women in circular dances, their arms raised, their feet unshod. Some archaeologists note the pattern of worn floor stones, as though steps had been repeated endlessly in ritual. At Latin, sites in Celtic Europe, graves of young women have been uncovered with footwear, braided down, buried beside offerings of drums and flutes, suggesting their role as ritual dancers rather than brides. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform tablets describe the Kurgara and gala dancers who served the goddess Inanna. Some were said to descend into the underworld and dance without pause, sustaining the cycle of fertility. Scholars once dismissed these accounts as myth, but in 20th century digs at Ur and Marie, archaeologists uncovered chambers deep underground, their walls scorched by torchlight, their floors littered with fragments of footwear child-sized, many of them. And in South America, high-altitude Inca sacrifices tell us something similar. Children chosen to dance and drink, their bodies preserved in ice, their shoes carefully placed beside them. Though not the same tale, the ritual logic is identical: shoes as vessels of offering, steps as covenant with the divine. Science reads patterns where stories weave symbols. The 12 dancing princesses may preserve not just a moral fable, but the last trace of an ancient system of belief that life must be renewed by sacrifice, that young women in their beauty and vitality were chosen as vessels of that exchange. When the brothers Grimm recorded the tale, the horror had long since faded, replaced by enchantment and mystery. But beneath the softened words, the archaeological record stirs. The worn shoes in children's graves, the circular floors smoothed by countless steps, the skeletal remains in ritual pits, they whisper the same refrain. The princesses were not escaping, they were serving. And the dance that entertained the court in story may once have been the dance that sustained the earth in ritual. Folklore preserves events, but symbolism preserves meaning. Every element in the 12 dancing princesses is a cipher, a code handed down through time. When we read carefully, the story does not describe a ballroom, it describes a ritual map. The shoes worn thin each night are more than props. In myth and ritual, shoes are thresholds. They carry us from one realm to another. To destroy them is to consume life force. In the tale, the princesses' slippers do not wear out from joy, but from exhaustion, a sign that their vitality is being stripped away, given to something unseen. Shoes become vessels of sacrifice, fragments of mortality offered up step by step. The number 12 is no accident. Across cultures, it is the measure of time, the 12 months of the lunar year, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 phases of the moon. To bind 12 princesses is to bind time itself, to ensure that the cycle of death and rebirth continues unbroken. They are not simply daughters of a king. They are avatars of the calendar, embodiments of cosmic order. Their dance is the endless turning of seasons, paid for in blood and breath. The dance itself is not entertainment, but invocation. Repeated, circular, unceasing, it is the language through which mortals address the divine. In many traditions, dance drains the body so that the spirit may rise in inversion of ordinary life. Here, the dance is the sacrifice. Each step carves away the self until what remains is pure offering. And then there is the hidden chamber, always underground, always sealed. A passage that splits open beneath the palace, leading down into shadow. This is the womb of the earth, the grave, the underworld. Myths everywhere repeat this descent. The Orphic mysteries, the Celtic She, the Mesopotamian gates of Irkalla. To step below is to enter the domain of the dead. The princess's midnight journey is not escapism. It is initiation, a passage into the tomb that demands payment before release. Put together, the story reads as ritual. 12 as time shoes, as life dance, as offering chamber, as death. Each symbol is a fragment of a larger language, one humanity once spoke fluently. And though today we dress it in silk and fairy dust, the truth bleeds through the tale is not entertainment, but a memory of how we bargained with the divine. Perhaps that is why it still haunts us. Because somewhere in our bones, we remember that beauty was never free, that joy was never pure, that every dance in the beginning was a covenant written in exhaustion, in silence, in the ruin of shoes. What does it mean that a story of silk and slippers hides a memory of sacrifice? Perhaps it is telling us something we do not want to hear, that beauty and destruction have always been entwined. Ancient peoples did not separate joy from terror, love from death. To them, life was a fragile loan, and the gods demanded payment. A dance was never just a dance, it was a covenant, a negotiation with forces too vast to see. The worn shoes of the princesses remind us of this bargain. Vitality must be consumed for the cycle to continue. And so the tale whispers a harsh philosophy: creation requires destruction. Renewal demands loss. Just as the seed must break for the plant to grow, just as the body must weaken for the spirit to ascend, so too must joy arise from ashes. The princess's endless dance is a metaphor for humanity itself, caught in the turning wheel of time, paying with steps, with breath, with life itself. Even our religions echo this truth. The Greeks spoke of Persephone descending to the underworld so spring could return. The Norse told of Ragnarok, where the world ends so it might be born anew. In Christianity, death on the cross becomes the seed of salvation. Always the same rhythm: destruction and rebirth, suffering and renewal. The fairy tale is another mask of that eternal truth. And in this light, the story becomes less about 12 young women and more about us. We are the dancers wearing down our shoes in the long corridors of time. We are the ones bound to invisible covenants, moving to rhythms older than memory. Each generation sacrifices so the next can live. Each life spins itself so that the wheel may keep turning. What the 12 dancing princesses reveals is not a tale of secret ballrooms, but a philosophy of existence, that life is a ritual of exhaustion, that survival itself is paid for in silence and loss. The story endures because it names what we all feel, but cannot speak, that joy is fragile, borrowed, fleeting, and behind every celebration lies the shadow of death. It is a truth both terrible and beautiful. Terrible because it strips away the illusion of innocence. Beautiful because it admits that even in exhaustion, even in sacrifice, humanity has always danced. The tale of the 12 dancing princesses does not end with dawn. It lingers. Like the echo of drums beneath the floorboards, like the whisper of footsteps in empty corridors. We are left with shoes in tatters, a number bound to the moon, and a hall beneath the earth where silence is more terrible than song. So, what do we make of it? A harmless fairy tale dressed for children, or a memory too ancient to name, wrapped in silk so that it might survive the centuries without being burned? The evidence suggests the latter. The ritual is there, hidden in plain sight, 12 as time dance, as offering shoes as life consumed. A story that tells us the price of survival was once written not in words, but in steps worn down to nothing. And if the 12 dancing princesses carries a secret nearly 3,000 years old, then we must ask, what of the others? What lies buried in tales we think we know? If these daughters danced with death, then perhaps Sleeping Beauty did not merely slumber. Perhaps she crossed into a ritual of sacrifice and return. Perhaps Snow White's coffin was never meant for love, but for death made holy. The stories do not end where we think they do. They only change their masks. So the question is not whether fairy tales are true. The question is, what truths have they been hiding all along?